Hello and welcome to the Hardy Brain, the show that takes athletic, introverted entrepreneurs and leaders and transforms them into ironclad brain performers. I'm your host, Dr. David Hardy. And today on our show, we've got another amazing guest. He is a former FBI agent, best-selling author, and a spy recruiter. Welcome to the show, Robin Dreeke. How are you doing today?
I'm good, David. How are you? I'm doing very well down here.
Excellent. Now, you've got 40 years of experience kind of in diverse backgrounds, but all kind of related here from military experience to FBI counterintelligence to now the developmental corporate world. Um, how'd all this kind of evolve, like looking back at things? Uh, what was the journey?
It's like all of us. We're all on a life journey. We're all on a life arc. And the things we do in those formative years of life really set that arc for the rest of our lives. Those formative years between roughly 9 all the way up to 24 as the prefrontal lobe's fully forming, when we kind of gravitate and understand the behaviors and things and people around us that allow us to feel safe, those are the things we're going to seek out the rest of our lives, and the behaviors we're going to do the rest of our lives. Those will manifest in different ways through the jobs we have or the places we are, but we're going to keep doing those things. And for me, where I grew up and how I grew up is I loved making friends and forming relationships. And when they went sideways, I really assessed and tried to understand what I did to make that change the way it did, in a negative way, a positive way. And so for my formative years, I was always assessing behavior and not really realizing it like most of us do, because I was doing that for one single reason: to make friends and feel safe. And so I was also a really good problem solver. My problems, because when you grow up with no money, we heated our house all by wood. I was working from a very young age. I am the very typical Gen Xer, born in '68. So it was drinking from hoses, throwing sticks and stones at each other. I I never had parents at home, so I was a free range beyond belief, but solving problems and working problems every day, which were my problems. But when I hit the Naval Academy and eventually Marine Corps and FBI, I had to start shifting that from being a problem solver of my own problems, understanding that if you're going to lead and inspire others, you really have to understand what their problems are and be a resource for them. So I was able
Well,
to take that.
what got you into kind of those leadership roles? Like you said, you kind of went from this individual mentality to then leading people. What what kind of roped you into it, per se, or drew you to it?
I wanted to. That it was so. It's always those funny questions: is it nature or nurture? And it's always
Right.
a blend of the two. And
Yeah.
so, genetically kind of predisposed for that, but really, humblingly so. I'd love to give the great altruistic answer of life's natural leader, but I just like to be looked at. I liked attention. I just was an only child, and so I craved being the center of attention, I think. And so that led me to wanting to be a great leader, and also watching movies. And we had friends in a family that were Navy pilots during Vietnam. I mean, there's a lot of really fascinating, great people around me that inspired me to want to do leadership and get into leadership. And I had great role models in high school that got me into football. And I did all the typical things that the type A jock will do to get yourself into the Naval Academy and do Marine Corps things. And so I was pursuing leadership, probably not for originally the right reasons, but I fell in love with the idea of service. I've always been about service, and serving my country. I was unapologetically a Reagan baby, as I call him, because Ronald Reagan was president when I was in middle school and high school. Didn't know about politics, but I knew that I was all about space and the space program and serving country. And it was a real wave of patriotism where I grew up, and so I just wanted to do things like that. And leadership kind of naturally fell into that. And I was discovering along the way, I really sucked at it at an early age, because I was solving my problems. The focus was on me, and leadership is about solving that problems for others. So that's kind of the nexus of how I got into it. But again, luckily, the core basis was there for that deep understanding of others. I was deeply empathetic. I was really good at understanding what was causing people to do what they did in their lives, and use that to create great, healthy relationships. And so it's just learning how to kind of fine tune it. And as I just finished a fun book, it's called, it's by Shannon Lee, the daughter of Bruce Lee.
Okay.
And it's called be water, my friend. And a great quote I absolutely loved about life's purpose at the end. It was what his purpose was, and he was a an artist of life. And
Mm.
I really gravitated that because that's what we all do. We're all painting our own little section of this mural of life around us, and that's what we do. And so, kind of morphing that all into your answer. I give narrative answers. I apologize; they tend to be long.
Well, you hit on so many things there, like being an artistry of things. And of course, your first draft is not going to be good. And you said you kind of sucked at leadership when you began. What's one of the stories from maybe that led you to the realization, I need to improve my skills here?
Yeah, if you've heard it before, I'll say it again. I've had many bone crushers when it comes to humbling moments, and when you love being a student, you love the fact as my son's a Marine Corps jet pilot, and he says it every day when he goes off to work. He goes, "It's going to be a big learning day." That means we're going to be humbled a lot today. It's going to be a big learning moment today. And I've had a lot of them. Probably the most profound one was a major shift of forcing me to kind of confront this aspect and lie I was telling myself that I was this great leader. Was in the Marine Corps. It was my first duty station in the Marine Corps. I made it through the Naval Academy, barely. Academically, it was challenging, and interpersonally, I was doing okay. I got through there because I knew how to forge great relationships with instructors and everything, but I wasn't exercising leadership yet. I was still solving my problems. But enter the Marine Corps. In the Marines, you need to lead. I mean, there's no choice. And the Marines are also very good at evaluating you, rating you, and judging the living hell out of you. And my first
I thought
evaluation,
being in the Marines was more about following.
it's everything because in order to
Yes.
be a leader, you have to be a follower first. And so and it's the path of mastery. The path of mastery is always being a teacher and always being a mentor. I mean, and a student. And that is the path. It's falling in love with that process. And so my first evaluation as a second lieutenant, I was ranked dead last, 14 out of the 14 second lieutenants in my squadron. Another one of life
Wow.
humbling moments because I came in thinking, hey, I'm a natural born leader. Everyone liked me. I got along with everyone. I was doing my job well. And I go to my Marine Corps major. And so the only other thing I had going for me all throughout my life, and I still do to this day, and we can break the world down at this, and that some people are wound collecting victims and other people's are problem solvers.
Hmm.
And I was always a problem solver. I was never a wound collector or a victim in my own mind. I didn't place the blame of my circumstances on anyone else. I owned it. And I go to my major. I said, all right, sir, I know I'm doing something wrong. What is it? He says, that's easy. You need to be a better leader. It's a very subjective thing to tell someone without context. And I didn't argue the point as I thought I was, but obviously I wasn't. And why did I think I was? Well, because I was told I was for so many years because I was voted president of my class. I was a football captain. I was a track captain. All these leadership positions, which were what? Popularity contests. And popularity is about self, not about others. And so I had a wrong context being reinforced. And so I then said to my major, I said, all right, sir, I need to be a better leader. How do I do that? And he goes, that's easy too. You need to make it about everyone else but yourself. He couldn't quite understand what he was saying exactly. He just knew that my focus was different. And now at that age, I'm saying to myself, well, I don't think I'm egocentric. I don't think I'm narcissistic. You know, I really do have humbling moments and I see them. But what he meant to say was that you're too busy solving your problems, not realizing everyone else around you has them too. And
Right.
so I then owned it. And I said, all right, what do I do that? What do I do to make it about everyone else but myself? And this is where the gauntlet was laid down. He goes, who knows? Figure it out. The gauntlet's laid down. I'm 24 years old, and we spent the rest of our lives trying to figure that out. And it really comes down to the language we're using. And the mindset was there. I didn't know how to put it into practice. And that is using the language of shifting the focus from ourselves to others was really the key element of everything I do in life now.
Now, so much of this, though, too, is observation. That before you can speak to somebody, you kind of observe, empathize, figure out kind of what they're feeling and going through or how they operate and run.
Mm-hmm.
What do you look at or kind of, because I'm sure this is developed over and over with yourself, is okay, what do you notice? And some of it was probably instinctual and some of it developed, but that process of actually observing people first before even opening your mouth.
100%. The first things I notice is I do a lot of true crime commentary. Even though I was a spy recruiter and espionage guy, I do a lot of true crime commentary for bad people doing bad things.
I saw
But it's
that.
all the same
Yes.
thing. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
We all observe all the time, and so I think the first thing that I'm observing with any individual is the simple difference between are they in comfort or are they in stress through the
Mhm.
nonverbal behavior. And comfortable people, I have the like you head tilt, nods, smiles, all the ventral displays are up or down, or are they more reticent, eyebrow compression, lip compression, blocking, blading, keeping away. So those are the first things. But I'll tell you what I've really been focusing on mostly, not by choice, but when you let the universe happen around you, this is what you gravitate to, and that is tempo. Tempo is a really
Ah,
great indicator. Someone's energy, some people call it energy. I call it tempo because everyone has a certain tempo about them. And if you push someone, especially if you don't know them yet, there's not an established trust and relationship yet. If you start pushing or trying to adjust someone else's tempo without a bank of trust, you're really going to set off their alarm bells. Red flags are going up and they're not going to want to engage. And so the first thing I'm also doing is assessing where is their tempo at? What can I do to match it? Because at the end of the day, all of us are extremely predictable. We're always going to act in our own best interest in terms of our own safety, our own security, and our own prosperity for ourselves and those we care about in our lives. So, the greatest motivator we always have, kind of going back to what I wanted to do when I was younger, we want to do things that allow us to be safe, to feel safe. And if someone is in our environment or a situation or an environment around us that doesn't allow us to feel safe, we're going to disengage. And so you are part of that environment. So you want to ensure that you are thinking in terms of what can I do to inspire this person to feel safe with me? And the first thing you can do is just adjust your tempo because that is the most off-putting thing that people do right off the bat is come in too fast, come in too close, and be way off-putting with that tempo. Especially if you're a high energy, positive, extroverted guy like me, you can be a nightmare coming in on someone.
fascinating. So you'll see that too in their posture and their movements, and that goes into the
Everywhere.
whole body language aspect of things. Now, you mentioned so many things there, like um, with all of this. It kind of goes into one of the things I've been thinking for a long time, and that is I think people set themselves up for disappointment when they say, I trust somebody, or that person's not able to be trusted because they're only trusting, once again, the good things that you as me, we as an individual are wanting from the other people. And we're not trusting other behaviors with them, that there be situations where, oh, yeah, somebody's not going to agree with me or somebody's going to backstab me if they're in the proper circumstances. It's always about trusting good emotions instead of all the behaviors that human beings have. Can you kind of
Mhm.
maybe speak to the gray area of trusting all human behaviors with people and it being more situational or environmental, as you had stated?
Yeah. So first, I'll kind of define trust as I assess trust. And trust for me is predictable behavior. Trust to me
Mm,
is not about morals or ethics or liking someone. Those things play into it, can play into it. But trust is really what can I reasonably expect you to do in this situation with me so I can manage my expectations because I want to ensure I do the number one thing in every interaction with every human being. That is, I want a healthy, strong relationship and interaction with you. Whether I like you or not, doesn't matter. I want a healthy, strong interaction. In order to do that, I have to reasonably expect what's going to happen from this interaction because I don't want to set a bar up here and hope, pray, and have an expectation here and you falling down here because if that happens, well, then I have the possibility of resentment. I have the possibility of anger, frustration, all the negative emotions that are going to destroy a healthy discourse. It's going to destroy a healthy relationship. And so trust to me is literally just predictable behavior. I use analogy quite frequently with my friend Steve. My friend Steve has been a friend of mine for years, another retired FBI agent. And Steve is a fantastic driver of cars, say. He can drive a great car. And I can easily trust Steve if I gave him the keys to my car and I say, hey, Steve, I need a ride today. Can you take me from point A to point B? I can trust Steve's going to be able to do that because he has reps and repetitions and experience of driving a vehicle. Now, I'm a pilot. I fly planes. Steve doesn't fly planes. I trust Steve with my life in a vehicle. I trust him as a great confidant, a great friend, but I'm not about to throw Steve the keys to a plane and say, I trust you not to kill me, fly me to point A to point B, because he has no repeatable behaviors that are observed that are safe in that area. And so I can't trust him with everything. And so I do trust in lanes and in just in lanes. And the way we assess where we can have trust is we just sit back and observe. And the key here also, the greatest hindrance we have with a healthy, strong relationship and dialogue and discourse is we have our own confirmation biases, both positive and negative. Because here's another guarantee of human behavior. If you're trying to look for someone doing something wrong, you will find them doing something wrong and you won't
Oh,
like them.
absolutely. Yeah.
Politics is the greatest example of this. I don't care what side you fall on, whether it's a Democrat or Republican side in the States. If you don't like the other side, there's not one thing that person could say or do that you're going to agree with. And conversely, if you
Yeah.
like someone, there's nothing they can say or do that you disagree with. It is just the most ludicrous thing in the world, but it's very understandable because as a human being, Robert Greene's great book, Laws of Human Nature, we
Right.
consume information that validates our own self opinion because
Yeah.
otherwise we're killing it.
Well,
And so what we
I
want to
like the
do is,
saying that what is it that there only about 3 to 6% of men are complete narcissists by the definition of what a narcissist is.
yeah.
But 99% of women will say they've dated one.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, it's why going back to my original quote, that I loved from B. Water, my friend, is an artist of life. When you can kind of be objective enough that you're not trying to see something, you're just observing what is. You can be such a better assessor of behavior. You can be a better judger of, is this a healthy place for me to interact and engage? And so when I'm assessing someone for anything, I'm looking at patterns of behavior. I call them life arcs. We all have this life arc. I always start out with, hey, what was that spark and inspiration that inspired you to be who you are today? Kind of like you just did with me at the very beginning. Because when we start seeing that life arc, we can start seeing and understanding things that they do to inspire them to feel safe. We can start understanding the decision process, free of a judgment of right or wrong. We're just understanding it. And then we can see where we can make those connections. And so I just take it all in because it is a beautiful mosaic. It's a beautiful show. And when you can start understanding what motivates people to take the actions they're going to take, you can start predicting their behavior. And then here's what's beautiful about this is how I do true crime. It's how I do anything. It's how I recruited spies. When someone's deviating from what you're reasonably expecting, one of two things have happened. Either you didn't know them well enough and had enough empathy to do a deeper dive, and or could be both, that there is a critical life crisis that happened right here that you're unaware of because something
Uh,
inspired them to deviate from an arc that is very predictable. If past patterns and key behaviors are always predictors of future ones, and it's not a level plane. Someone argued with me once, just because you did something a certain way 3 or 4 times doesn't mean you're going to do it the same way tomorrow. No, I'm not saying you're going to do it the same way, but we all have a learning curve as well. Our openness to new experiences, our openness to learning. And so our arcs, very few, I know probably one person in my life that their arc is completely flat. In other words, they are so confident in their own ego and in everything in their lives that they're not learning one single thing all day long. So it's just a flat arc. So I can really predict what they're going to do and how they're going to interact every day. But meanwhile, the rest of us, some of us have an arc that's like this maybe, or spiked up. Depends on how much we enjoy learning every day. It's fueled really by our curiosity. And if I can start assessing how curious you are, I can really predict, where you're going to be on your path and kind of expect, the amount of growth and just all the great, beautiful human interactions. And so that's how I do what I do.
I love it. Now, you talk about safety, you talk about trust and observing people. Um, Recruiting a spy. I would imagine that is going to be taking them out of a safe situation. And if you're on the other side and need somebody to be a spy, they're not going to be trusting you. So how does this all play in then with spy recruiting and that aspect of your former career?
It all aligns. I've done such a deep dive to try to understand how this whole process works.
I
Um,
imagine,
so,
yes.
so the first thing is understanding what creates a healthy, strong relationship. And one of the things, there's many things, but one of the key elements of a great, healthy, strong relationship, and I'm not, notice I'm also not using the word liking here. If you like someone, that's actually just icing on the cake. But a strong relationship between two people is an agreement. And that agreement is that we're both going to be good for each other's lives and help each other progress towards a common goal. And so that common goal, number one, being safety, security, and prosperity for each other. And we're assessing whether that person we're interacting with is going to be a viable, safe resource for that, someone that you can trust. And so the first thing you're doing when trying to recruit a spy is realizing that you're not going to recruit anyone. It's already in their heart that they're going to try to do this number one thing, and that is solve a critical life challenge that they have. And now they're assessing their environment. Who can I find to solve a critical life challenge? So for you and I, a critical life challenge can be a lot simpler. For someone that is willing to exchange a defecting or betraying a country, it's going to have a higher price tag. Of that critical life challenge could be they don't want their kids growing up in that country. They're trying to look for elder care issues, dealing with elderly parents. They're trying to undermine an oligarch like Putin that they think is destroying their country. There's a lot of much big motivators than typically just paying the bills. It's never something so rudimentary, small, and crass. It's a critical life challenge they're facing. So that's the first thing, is that you got to identify someone with that, which is a challenge because no one's going to walk out and say, "Hey, I got a critical life challenge."
I was
And
just going to
so
say
the
that
next
is probably very, very difficult to find. Like,
It is, and so you can't. So the thing is, you cannot actively seek for it because you'll never find it because it's hidden deep, dark inside of someone. But what you can do is you can place yourself in their line of sight, in their path, in a way that you're not pushing tempo. They just become aware of you, and their awareness of you is they're aware that, hey, here's an individual. They have ties potentially to someone from the U.S. government who has resources because there's a track record. There's a brand that's associated with them that they might be an individual that could solve this critical life challenge. And so you get introduced by a trusted third party, because very rarely are you going to be walking up and do cold calls, because people don't take cold calls. It's actually illegal for me by treaty to actually even approach an intelligence officer because they're generally diplomats from a foreign country. So as FBI, it's illegal for me to even do that. And so you're using trusted intermediaries many times, and it's a feeling out process. And so that's the first thing. Can they identify you as someone who can solve a critical life challenge? And then, like you said, then can they trust you to keep them and their families safe and alive? And in order to do that, you have to do what's most people don't understand when you're dealing with the hooky spooky spy world that you see on TV, is you have to be free of free of manipulation, no subterfuge, no deception. You have to have the behaviors of trust, it's very simple. It's open, honest communication, transparency, and vulnerability.
that
Because if
sounds
you're not
completely different to what's out there. Everybody thinks that this is a game of manipulation,
100% not.
and it's not.
Well, think about it. So I love what Einstein always says. Everyone can sit here, listen, just do your own thought experiment. If a stranger walked up to you on the street, I don't care what critical life challenge you're facing with, if you don't know them, you've never seen them before, and someone hands you a bag of, say, even $6-10 million, and says, "Hey, I'd love to sit down with you, this week, no obligation, have a cup of coffee to talk," and they're a stranger, what would your reaction be?
Right, exactly.
You'd freak out. What the hell is this? I mean, see what I mean? So that is manipulation and subterfuge. If someone tried to come up to you and use blackmail, if someone tried to threaten you, if someone tried to just place yourself, and this is what deep active empathy is, place yourself in that situation and ask yourself, how would I respond? Because all we all doing is we're interacting with other human beings with the exact same emotions we have, the exact same life challenges we have, and in the exact same planet we're living on. And so if it's creepy to you, it's creepy to them. And so
Now,
when you are
now
go
everyone's going
ahead,
to
sorry.
agree with you on this one. It is. But what
Yes.
about the term that's being thrown around so much, like, well, almost as much as narcissist now nowadays, but gaslighting? So people are afraid that people are being nice because eventually they're going to screw you over.
Yeah, it's those these things are so easy to see coming so far away as
Oh,
well.
right.
Um, well, I mean, we all see it, and so gaslighting people, they're the ones that are coming with the big smiles, but their agendas are so clear because, first of all, very rarely is when someone is gaslighting you or going to manipulate you in some way, do they come in to build a trust bank. And the trust bank is built by proactive being a resource in your life, understanding your needs, wants, dreams, and aspirations, and offering themselves as a resource without an ask. That's really key. How fast is the ask coming? If the it's because that's what's happening with the gaslighting. That's what's happening with everything. People are coming in with agendas, and they are using cheap surface level flattery. They're not doing a deep dive to really truly understand you, understand what your needs, wants, dreams, and aspirations are, and offer themselves as a resource in terms of those things without an ask. And so this is where if I especially I do this every single day because I'm on social media a lot. I have a public platform for everything I do on TV and everything. It's very easy to see someone coming in and trying to say a few surface level things, and when I see this come in, I embrace everyone with a big smile but a tempo shift. My tempo shift is let's going to slow down because, as they say in aviation, there's no emergency takeoffs because every emergency takeoff is going to cause an emergency landing. And so I just slow down and I just pause. I take a deep breath. I shift the focus back from what the cheap flattery might be to them. And I say, hey, so help me understand what's going on in your life. What's new this week? What inspired you to reach out to me? If that's even if I'm going to engage, because some of these things are so obvious that you just
So
steer
so
away.
that's
But
going to
yeah,
be the intentional one, and usually someone who's not skilled in
right.
anything
Which is
you've
most
mentioned
people.
so far. Um, but a lot of it too is probably the breakdown of trust at later on in a relationship. And then
Mm.
people go, "Oh, I was gaslighted." Or they feel like they were gaslighted, maybe legitimately, because something didn't align and then the trust was broken. So, uh, is trust something that could be infinitely out there, or is it eventually going to have a time where it's done in a lot of situations, say in the corporate world or in these areas of political arenas where things are so short lived? Where does it play kind of in that timeline or with different agendas long term or changes in agendas?
So I'll tackle. There's a couple elements in there, and I'll go to the first one first, and that is, say you have a typically good, trusting relationship with someone, and all of a sudden it goes sideways for some reason, and we lose trust in a certain area. Someone all of a sudden gaslights you, but there had been established what you thought was a good, established, healthy relationship and discourse with someone, and all of a sudden it goes sideways. I am the glass half full guy. I am the one that I will give every single human being the benefit of acting in their own best interests, and it doesn't mean it's about me. What, so I never ever, boy, I hate those words because it's very absolute. I
Right.
rarely, I rarely, if ever, and I'll always do my best to never take things personally. If all of us, so your scenario you kind of laid out there was all right, things are going well, we have a great relationship, even if it's just for a couple days or a couple weeks or even go on for years, and all of a sudden we have a major deviation that spikes it and we feel hurt, someone did a behavior that gaslit us, whatever it is. Here's how my mind works. Oh gosh, something happened in their life that caused that behavior, and it's not me. I'll own my behaviors. Like, first thing I'll do is I'll assess what did I do to cause a trigger a response to a trauma response in them. So I'll own my behavior. Did I do something that inspired their change and their spike from what I saw their baseline of? Because if now I'm constantly sitting back and observing baseline behavior, we're going to see gaslighting coming a mile away because we're going to see that there's a hidden agenda here that we're unaware of. And what are hidden agendas? How do we see these things? When there's when there's a lack of transparency in things that don't make sense. And so when things don't add up and someone's sharing something and there's incongruencies when what they're sharing, when you are seeking transparency and it's a healthy relationship, you should get transparency at that same tempo you got everything else.
But this is
If
all right now looking down at the situation, and of course we can see the pieces play out that way. What about
in the
in
moment,
the trenches? Both parties are stressed out because you
I
see
pause,
this all the time in business, and I'm sure
pause.
this is another reason corporations bring you in to speak about things
Yeah,
like you
because
do.
you got to pause. You got to pause. I live with a thing called a loving critic. Loving critic is that objective third party that's sitting by your side that cares deeply invested in you, but not the outcome you're seeking. Because those objective third party people can be your gold. Because when you're emotionally tied to the outcome that you're seeking, you're going to have the confirmation biases you want to see, and you're going to miss red flags potentially on these things. And so, in those heat of the moments, that third party you actually have to trust when they say you need to slow down and shut up for a few minutes because something's not going right here. You need to, as much as you want to rail against it, sometimes you have to listen to that objective third party or loving critic because they're guiding you right more times than not, guaranteed. Now, at the same time, if you don't have the luxury of the loving critic, you just slow down. If you can't get the transparency you need in those moments and things don't add up, own it. Say, listen, I apologize for my very slow moving small brain, but I don't understand this. You tried your best, and I give you great credit for trying to explain this to me, but I don't understand it. I don't have transparency here. For the sake of a good, healthy relationship, we need to take a pause until I understand exactly what's going on. And that's on me. And that's where you're owning it. You're not placing blame. You're not accusatory, but you're saying, listen, I'm not having an emergency takeoff here because this is not worth. And then you can explain too that they say, well, why? I said, well, here's why. I value our relationship, like I'm sure you value our relationship, more than this thing we're trying to do. And since I'm not comfortable with this, I would hate to move forward and all of a sudden have feelings of resentment, frustration, and anger towards you, which would undermine anything from this point forward. So, in order to prevent that from happening, it's my fault. I need to own it, and I'm going to slow this down for my sanity so I can make sure that I don't derail us later on because of this. That's how I do it. I force the pause because there is nothing. Because again, if you're not comfortable today, and you're not having that transparency and they're not giving it, the likelihood of you having it tomorrow, we're talking slim to none. And then when you take that deep breath and that pause, your ability to see red flags along the way typically go way up because all of a sudden you got out of the heat of the moment, you got it out of the tempo, you got it out of the momentum. And then whether you have that loving critic next to you or not, you're going to be able to see things lining up that you were hoping you didn't see. You're going to see red flags that were there that you're blowing past because very rarely, if you actually get to the point where something got so egregious where you need to take a pause, that wasn't the first red flag. They were there before, but you weren't. Now, granted, if you take that pause and you can explain away all these things, not rationalize. Rationalization gets into that own confirmation bias we're trying to do. But when you can actually explain away with facts and data exactly what happened using our higher brain, not our emotional lower brain, things will either line up or they won't. I personally have not worked with anyone or in my own life ever had a moment where I took a pause and said, I didn't need to take that pause. We would have been fine.
Right. Now, how much are red flags true red flags, and how many of them are maybe something that could have been discussed or worked through? And how do people get confused about the two? Because it is
Typically,
gray.
red
It's
flag.
not just good and bad out there. It's a combination, right? It's different interests
Yeah.
and
Well, here's what's going on. Here's what typical red flags are being caused by. It's because people have an agenda. Both sides have an agenda, whether it's individuals
absolutely.
or companies. Right.
Yeah.
And what happens is what causes typical red flags is when someone is trying to be secretive about an agenda that they think that you should know or should need to know, but they're not telling you intentionally. And so those are typically when the red flags are going off. And so if you're sensing an inconsistency somewhere and you're saying, listen, I'm getting a feeling that, we're not being as transparent with each other as we might need to be. Help me understand where I'm feeling this. Now, granted, if they have cards they need to hold, here's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for open, honest, like in the sense of I'm going to share everything. Say, listen, you're right. There's things I'm holding back because of our company policy, because of laws, because we're not ourselves too comfortable sharing this yet. But I'll tell you what, I think we're moving down that path together. That will eventually be safe, feel safe sharing that with you, and we'll be able to hit agreements. But today, as of right now, not quite yet. That is transparent. I'm fine. Hey, we're good because now we're not trying to hide something. We're clear with agendas because if you're going to be in cooperation with someone, there needs to be a clear understanding of what people's agendas are, what the end state is, and what we're doing is we're being transparent with the tempo that each side is comfortable working towards. Now, if they're saying no, everything's fine with me, I stop. Say no. I think we'll take a pause for a while. Lane, because now, granted,
Perfect.
in the lane we
Mhm.
could be completely this one right here, not so good. So when I talk about trust in lanes, just because you're uncomfortable here doesn't mean that over here we're not good. Now, granted, the likelihood, maybe, but I mean, I'm always assessing where we at in these different lanes.
I love it. This is face-to-face stuff, though. Now let's go back to this whole geopolitical world that you were kind of a part of. And there is no face-to-face. That okay, yeah, you're not sure what the other side's doing. And you could be out of the loop. There is no transparency, or there's little nuggets of transparency, breadcrumbs put there to make you go in a direction. Um, and paranoia sets in with people. So I'm sure this happened in the spy recruiting side. You could see that paranoia and people questioning the overall systems around them. How do you zoom out to this aspect where there isn't transparency, there isn't this face to face, and it's larger than just one person? It's several different entities mixed together.
Yeah, the believe it or not, the greatest challenge with dealing with spy recruiting, I think, in any organization, very rarely. I mean, just think about this in everyone's own company and organization that you're working in. If you're working with a client, generally working with a client is the easiest thing you're dealing with. The hardest thing you're dealing with is explaining to your management how you're working with the client and how you, because you're spending so much face time with the client, you have great trust with the client, but management is like all over the place. Because typically in management, what's happening is you have so many different individuals, and every single individual has varying agendas and varying priorities. And so satisfying everyone's priorities to do, because everyone's priorities is what? Those are the things they need to do to feel safe with saying yes to you. And so, like with my behavioral team, most of my time when I was doing consultations for a case agent somewhere in the country trying to recruit spies or double agent operations or what I call the hooky spooky spy stuff, I spent a majority of my time, probably 70, 80, maybe 90% of my time as a team member, as a, and running the team, assessing the case agent's management and how to communicate with them to get yes to
Uh,
the operation. The operation is a simple part. This operation is between one agent and one intelligence officer they're trying to recruit. That's one dialogue and one individual we're trying to make a great, healthy dialogue with. On the other side is I got to manage and I got to deal with the case agent's boss, squad members, language specialist, maybe surveillance specialist, the boss's boss, finance division, legal division, FBI headquarters, State Department. I'm dealing with all these other entities that this one case agent has to get yes from to have one interaction over here. And so when we're dealing with companies and organizations, dealing with a client's the easy one. Dealing with my management behind me, that's usually the toughest one,
right.
because and here's the reason. And I mean, it's there's no right or wrong in what the behaviors are. It's there's always an assumed level of trust, an assumed rapport you have with the people around you. But in reality, no, because people aren't spending enough time keeping those relationships healthy in order to be able to move forward outwardly and deal with other ones. And so it is a huge, that's why it's an art. I was just talking to someone the other day. Every time you're thinking about a skill, tool, or tactic, it's one more second you're not focusing on the individuals you're actually encountering and working with and working with them in the way they want to be worked with. The skills and tactics that we get in training give us a baseline understanding of what we're observing. Now you got to go out and observe it yourself firsthand, because there's no training that brings you to the level of doing this except your reps, understanding human behavior, understanding the person you're engaging, and most importantly, understanding you and what your blind spots are, seeing what they see when they see you, that deep, active empathy, seeing life from their optic, their lens, and what you look like from across that table from their shoes. Brene Brown talks about in her books, it's great to have this great active empathy and to walk someone else's shoes, but first you have to take yours off. That is what we're talking about. This is talking about literally letting go of everything, being that other person from all the stresses they have in life and seeing what that optic looks like, free of judging it from being right or wrong. It's just theirs. It's a
Right.
lot of work.
This is a ton of work, and there's a lot of points and webs there. Um, Now,
Beautiful.
it's a mastery, and I can see why it's 40 plus years in the making here, and I can see how you're connecting these different angles,
It's beautiful. I mean, it seems
and you're going
it's
through it probably many case studies in your head at once. Uh,
just always,
Fantastic example
always
of
reflecting.
experience. Wow.
Yeah, just
Now,
always reflecting. Always
yeah.
assessing your last encounter with another human. I'll be talking about, in my own head about our conversation today for hours and days afterwards too.
So there's really a skill in being an introvert with this, I would imagine, along with being able to communicate with people. Um, Now, you mentioned reflecting. You're also sharing your reflections here. So, from building rapport, forging trust, predicting behavior, creating alliances. You've written 4 amazing books that really get your thoughts down so people can start to train themselves into having these better relationships and finding the win-wins and less damage and destruction along the way. How do people find more information about you? Obviously, they need to go to Amazon and order 4 books right away. But on top of
Yeah,
that, what are the things that you've been up to and you're doing, and that people need to reach out and find out more?
I'm easy because it's just go to my website is a one page stop for if you want to buy the books, but also I got a pretty sizable YouTube channel as well. I got a lot of my thoughts and ideas through my own podcast that I do, my own behavior videos I do. And so the website's easy. It's robindreeke.com, ROBINDREEKE.com. And you can get stuff for free, or you can pay me lots of money and I'll come talk at you for hours. Or you can, if you're a CEO and you've got an executive team that wants some really high level stuff to train about how to be a spy and how to recruit sources for your executive team. My buddy from MI6, that's the 007 guys, Matthew Dunn, we have a group, the two of us, called D2, D2 Intelligence. And so you can have it all for free, or you can pay us a lot of money. Either way, it's all good, because as my great friend Joe Navarro says, if you have at least one bit of information another person on this planet could benefit from, shame on you for not getting it to them and however they need to receive it. So it's however you need it, however you want it. Everything's right there.
Absolutely true service right there. So definitely reach out to Robin. And of course, stay tuned to the next episode of The Hardy Brain, the show that takes athletic, introverted entrepreneurs and leaders and transforms them into ironclad brain performers. Take care.